Thanks, Jeffrey. Okay, so today we're gonna, I chose let's talk Industry 4.0 because this is the way things are actually moving forward. IoT, cloud computing, and various other technologies actually merging together, and we're going in that direction. So not gonna be, I'm gonna talk a bit about IoT, and obviously if you have other questions, we can actually get back to that afterwards, obviously. I hate reading slides, but it's gonna be made available for all of you obviously afterwards, and then my email address will be there. If you have other questions, we can actually take it offline if any one of you wants to get to that. So I'm not going to read what I do. What I don't do is I wear various hats as well. So it's kind of a long one. So I'll skip that to maintain time. So you can call me Kris, which is easier. And let's move to what is. So mainly, how was Industry 4.0 coined? I would say a lot of people actually talk IoT, talk about everything, but obviously what we have to understand is basically it was termed by the Dutch government, and they kind of thought, IoT should be something that's actually interesting. That should include cyber physical systems, Internet of Things, cognitive computing, robotics, artificial intelligence. Everything that we have on technology today is actually going like a pyramid. It's going to be at the term on the end point. So it's just a current name to say, Industry 4.0, but really what we're looking at, it's not only Internet of Things, but obviously all these different technologies merged together, and which makes logical sense. Obviously, Germany has been one of the major countries who've been actually moving forward with smart factory, but we'll get to, I'll show you a typical example of, for example, what Volkswagen, for example, has actually done in a way forward. Right. So we know Industry 4.0 is the next stage of industrial revolution. That's why I went for that and say, let's talk about it. Industry 1.0 was steam power. We know what mechanization and textile loom started out with. 2.0 was electrification, telecommunication, combustion. Things started moving. 3.0, obviously the computer era, where, 1950s, and obviously a bit of robotics and automation started with that. And we're now more into the 4.0, which is the era of machines talking directly to machines, M2M, as we say, or remotely via cloud computing and storage. And these are things which we already come across these days. So we've got, using the Germans as a way forward, I think it makes logical sense that we should be definitely calling it the fourth industrial revolution, because it is going to reduce costs, and obviously we're going to see, how machines are becoming slightly more intelligent, and probably even people, because at one point in time we were able to do certain things, but we couldn't actually collaborate with machines. But with Industry 4.0, we'll see how some of the things are actually moving forward. So machine and people are also going to be working together in that direction. So, this is slightly to coin how it was. So you see the different industrialization, the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. And obviously, we're not sure what the fifth would look like, but we will probably see. I don't want to make predictions of how the future would definitely look like, but we're definitely talking about cyber physical systems where everything is actually merged together and the industry is actually moving in that direction. So let's see I've actually put in the different, you see a typical manufacturing plant here, for example, and you get the possibility to actually move from, as a customer, using your smartphone, for example, ordering exactly what you want, and you get it tallied and tied up to the way you want it. we're no more in the age of, well, it is moving, and we're no more getting into the age of, you order something and you get it. Yeah, you like it, you don't like the color, there's a lot of things happening in the background, and obviously people need to understand that it's either right now you get on the bus, you join the bandwagon, and you get onto IoT and moving into Industry 4.0. And it's not only on Industry 4.0, but obviously the banking systems and things are actually moving pretty much forward and giving loads of possibilities. Obviously, people would have questions such as security, but we can get back to that on a shorter or longer term. But if people are having questions such as, do we have standards for IoT, or standards for Industry 4.0? It's not really yet out there. We're still working on it, obviously, and it depends on how things move forward. But one of the, as I said, I mentioned earlier, Germany is actually one of the countries who are actually doing a better job out of it. The US is following, probably China might be doing the same thing. I mean, the last time I saw them, they were trying to work out, and they're doing quite an interesting way of doing things. So this is basically just to show you what it is, not to go in details. Okay, so here I have for you a kind of a video that will help you understand more.
New technologies are changing the world. They're also making the cars manufactured by the Volkswagen Group more efficient, safer, and more customer-friendly. The nature of car manufacturing is also changing in a similar way. In fact, the next batch of innovations is so extraordinary that experts are already declaring the dawn of a new industrial era, Industry 4.0. So what does manufacturing look like today? Traditional car production involving hundreds of identical vehicles lined up in a row no longer exists. The options available to customers are now so vast that each car becomes a unique and individual object. Cars are now manufactured to order. Data makes its way from the customer's order to the Volkswagen Group's systems and then to each individual section of production. A car consists of many thousands of individual parts. The press shop processes blanks for the bodywork. In the body shop, the car is baptized. In other words, it's given an RFID tag that can track it via radio frequency. This establishes which car body belongs to which customer order. The paint shop also receives information from the system world. In sequencing storage, the cars are placed in an optimal order for assembly. From here, information is transmitted to suppliers and pre-assembly as to which part is required when and where. In final assembly, the finished car emerges.
Way of looking at how the future looks like, and Volkswagen Group has actually started doing it, which is actually a good thing for what the people can actually learn about. So here's a cyber physical system. I'm not going to read all the details within the slides, so I'll keep it to the main points, obviously. So cyber physical systems aims at integration of computing and physical processes. If you look at the video, it is shown a couple of things which are actually interesting. So it also mentioned RFID, for example, which is basically identification. And then obviously we're talking about integration of sensors and actuators, which is essential for a machine to operate, and also obviously being able to collaborate with the people itself as well. And then the development of sensors and actuators, it's a development which allows machines to store and analyze data, and obviously the CPS, as we called it, well, basically multiple sensors and actuators can be networked for the exchange of information. One of the interesting things that comes out of what we've been, the Volkswagen factory video shows us is, people can actually order their car to their likes. So today, rather than having a car park full of cars, the Volkswagen factory, for example, can actually say, okay, you order whatever you want. This is the color. This is what I want the interior to look like. And obviously, they're built to the customer's needs. So you no more have people. You no more have a lot of how would you say warehousing. A lot of cars sitting out there and waiting for a customer to buy it. Probably might match a certain color. They probably don't have it. They will have to work on it. Now that's changed. So the time that's limited to do whatever it is can be changed to make things work. So Industry 4.0 actually makes everything together. That's where we come down to the Internet of Things. So it's essential. Machines can exchange data, and in a lot of applications, and the sensor and the changes in the environment around them. So fire alarms are a good example of that. However, as we say, it's is thought to be, Internet of Things is thought to be truly as initiated for Industry 4.0, because Internet of Things is basically all the things around you, which is becoming intelligent day by day. And obviously, probably most of you might have come across the fact that you might have an intelligent fridge that you're leaving your work, and obviously your wife is at home, and your fridge could probably tell you, you're missing milk or whatever, and you just drop it into the store and get home, and you have a happy wife, as we say. We always have a problem keeping them happy. So the Internet of Things is what enables objects and machines, such as mobile phones and sensors, to communicate with each other, as well as human beings to work out solutions. But there are more interesting stuff that is actually is happening right now, which is going to be very interesting over the years to come. The integration of such technology allows objects to work and solve problems independently, of course. And this is not entirely true, as human beings are also allowed to intervene. So that's why we don't have them moving. For example, if you take a look at the video I've showed you before, the interaction between robotics and the human beings who are able to actually do things in a more open way. Okay, so however, in case of conflicting goals, the case is usually raised to higher positions, but it's shown to be interesting, not much of a problem. But there's also another word that's being coined, which is the Internet of Services. You see, it is easy to see today's world, through an electronic device. Obviously, we know how our smartphones are and what we're doing with them, the connection to the internet, and how we track our friends. So there's quite a huge development and diversity in the electronics and the smart devices that are going to come out surely, obviously, with time. We know the smartphones, we know the tablets, we know the laptops, TVs are actually changing, or even watches are actually interconnected. I use my watch, obviously, which is connected back to my phone, and obviously gives me information, keeps track of things, and makes it easier when you're in the meetings as well. The Internet of Services aims at creating a wrapper that simplifies all the connected devices to make most out of them by simplifying the process, which is also making life kind of easier. But obviously, some of you might be having questions, what happens with security, but we'll deal with that afterwards. We can talk about it. It is the customer's gateway to the manufacturer. And the industry obviously needs to be like this for us to be more cost effective as well. So these are things that we will be looking at. So what are the key design principles? We're talking about interoperability. We're talking about virtualization. We're talking about decentralization of things. I mean, look at Amazon and how they distribute. You go online, you buy something specific, and it gets delivered to your house, and it has a box that says Amazon on it. But obviously, they're not carrying the warehouse. The warehouse is not with them. There's a lot of interesting things that's happening behind. But Amazon has actually had that idea before, And obviously, this is also going forward. I mean, look at the Airbus A380, for example. If people have looked around, bits and pieces are built everywhere and put together, very easily. The other things are obviously real-time capability. Real-time capability, obviously, we cannot take out of the equation, because obviously real-time capability gives you, your processes are actually done in line. You're not building, for example, cars and keeping them again in a parking lot. Service orientation, you're becoming more focused with the production, more customer oriented, and you're looking at making your customers more happier. It's not about like the old days, you have certain things, but you don't like certain things in there. You want changes, which takes more over time. Well, what you're looking at making your customers happy. Modularity, smart factories' ability to adapt to market is essential. Now, these are things that we have to look at. That's what I say. I put it in there as design principles, and then we can obviously go in details about that. But however, we cannot really take out the advantages out of it. There are disadvantages, but I will be talking about the advantages. So optimization. So optimizing your production is key advantage to Industry 4.0. Smart factory containing hundreds and thousands of smart devices, and goes on. But the most important thing is being able to utilize production constantly and consistently will profit the company, and obviously profit your customers as well. Obviously, customization is there, so things can be made to order, obviously. Pushing the research, so the adoption of 4.0 technologies will push research in various fields, such as IT security, obviously, to another level. But we're not here to talk about IT security, so but there is consequences of that as well. We know that there's smart houses coming up, education, and people will have to start looking at that and making life easier, as we say. Consequently, education and training will take a new shape that provides such an industry and will require skilled labor. So even universities and other areas will have to adapt to it. So what are the challenges that faces Industry 4.0? One of them is security and obviously cyber theft, and we know what's going on today. This is something that is still in line that we need to look at. And there is no proper standard per se, or when it comes to IoT, but we're working on that. The other one is capital transformation. That will require huge investment in a new technology that doesn't sound cheap, obviously. Decision to make such transformation will have to be at the CEO level. I mean, at the end of the day, people will you will have to look at how your business actually moves forward. We call it Industry 4.0. That doesn't mean it's only manufacturing. It's also probably even, those airlines, for example, specific things. And if you look at the website, they're starting to be more intelligent. We have apps on smartphones that actually are doing that kind of job. And if you start looking at it, a lot of airlines, for example, are actually starting to make you pay for, other additional services. So it's not only just about cost effectiveness, but obviously making the money on the other side as well. But that depends how people actually get into it. The other one is employment, obviously. While it still remains a speculation on employment conditions, whether we're going to throw people out of the job, that's not particularly going to that direction, because the way we're starting to look at things is the integration of the human being with the robotics, and making sure that the kind of, let's say, like Rolls-Royce, everything is made to perfection. That means it's handmade. People actually work with that. So this is also being integrated. So it will make things a bit faster. And the other thing is privacy. This is not only the customer's concern, but also the producers, obviously. In such an interconnected industry, producers need to collect and analyze data. And, we're talking about data analytics. We're talking about big data. And there's a lot of information out there, a lot of data that needs to be processed to understand how your customers react. And that can be placed into even supermarkets, hypermarkets, to understand exactly how your clients, how your customers understand things, how they feel like, what are the key things that actually goes in there. So basically, if you look at IoT, Internet of Things, you could have, looking at your retail or your supermarket or whichever kind of business you're like, even banking, you can follow your customers more. It's actually creating a kind of an open loop for understanding your customers more. It's not like the usual CRM we used to have in the old days, but obviously the data is there, you analyze it, and you start seeing what is important. But you obviously want to keep the privacy, obviously, and that takes a different way, which is where we need to look at how we bridge the gap between the consumer and the producer, which is very important because everybody wants to be having their privacy. Now, looking at the EU, which is actually bringing in GDPR, for example, and enforcing it, privacy becomes a very, very important thing, an important factor. Now, just to move a bit further, is the future of the workforce. It's big data-driven quality control. It's robot-assisted production, self-driving logistic vehicles, which we've seen. Production line simulation. You can simulate your production line, know how much time things are going to take to get produced at the end of the day, how you get your people, your industrial, your engineers, and different people within that line. Predictive maintenance. Now that's quite an interesting thing that has come up. Having smart devices will definitely allow manufacturers to predict failures because you've already done the simulation. What are the potential bottlenecks? What are the potential problems that can come in there? Machines as a service. Now, that a new industry will also allow manufacturers to sell a machine as a service. This means that instead of selling the entire machine to the client, the machine will be set up to and maintained by the manufacturer. See, while the client takes advantage of the services it provides, this opens up jobs in maintenance and obviously requires expansion in sales. So we're not saying that the workforce is going to be going away, so you don't have that issue. Just quickly, how does Industry 4.0 and Smart Factory then benefit manufacturing? Reduce labor and maintenance costs, obviously. Greater revenues is there. I won't go on in details on these areas. It's already written down there on the slide, but we can talk about it later on. Improved efficiency, inherent agility. You need to be agile today. You cannot wait and look at the process. You have an agile process that makes things work faster. Increase innovation. People are talking about innovation, but how can the innovation come in when if you look at it from a business perspective, it's all about revenue anyway, you like it or not. Maximize customer experience. How do we do that? That also goes into the innovation part as well. But obviously, when you have maximized customer experience, you will have definitely great prices, fast delivery. It helps the client be happier every day. One of the other areas I wanted to cover, what happens is, we're talking about the big ones. What happens to the SMEs, the small to medium manufacturer? So against the bigger competitors, you have real-time conditioning monitoring. Your machines and sensor are more recorded and displayed in real time. You have more data visualization. That will not restrict you to your control station, which is your PDAs, your smartphones, and whatever you want to put in there. There's no user license. Will ensure that you maximize the benefits of the support. So your PDA may become very important. Flexible evaluation and analysis options. Obviously, intuitively presented software solutions will definitely allow you to use highly customized, predefined rules and analyze production planners. And you can configure your stuff on your own without need of complicated IT know-how. This is happening today. It's not happening in 10 years' time. It's already started. We're just not putting them all together to see what's happening. It's like, predefined machine parameters that trigger notice upcoming maintenance in the form of text messages or emails. You have your WhatsApp and everything. You're on top of what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, all in real time, which makes a small and medium manufacturer quite efficient, and obviously can match up with bigger competitors as well. But SMEs have got to move in that direction as well. Targeted notifications are generated by the system and sent to experts instantly. Means, well, if you look at it, your target notifications goes to the HR, you go to different departments, everybody knows exactly where they're going. It doesn't take much time. You have to be more integrated, and everybody knows exactly, for example, where to go, where to start, and when to get the customer happy, even within the organization itself. Right. So I'll take you to my final thoughts. Industry 4.0 is definitely a revolutionary approach to manufacturing techniques. Concept will push global manufacturers to a new level of optimization and productivity. Not only that, but we know that customers all enjoy a new label of personally customized products. We live in a world today where people like customized products. It's not the old days where you wanted to buy a Ford car and this is the way it looks like. We already build blue or whatever. You stick to that. This is changing. So economic rewards are immense. However, there are still many challenges that needs to be tackled systematically to ensure smooth transition. Obviously, this needs to be the focus of large corporations and governments alike. I can take, for example, a typical African country. Unfortunately, they're just going to be having a civil war there. Kenya is, I was doing a presentation there. The government had been looking at how to have IoT integrated within the government to make the government more agile and be able to respond to the different clients, which basically is the population. So it's coming. It's not that it's not having any effect, but there is, well, Kenya is known to be one of the most, as we say, connected country in Africa, because we all talking about digital divide and everything. However, they've started using smartphones. So there's more smartphones there than computers, and they cost a lot more cheaper. They do a lot of banking business through their smartphones. And today they're looking at how and seeing how they can make the government more focused towards IoT, make it easier, and obviously what will happen afterwards, we don't know, but that's a country issue, what they have now. While speculations regarding privacy, security, and employment need more study, that's a fact. Overall picture is promising. That means we will definitely get there, but obviously we need to look at those small things. Example, privacy, security is has a very big impact on ISO today. We're still working on that. We're still looking at standards and processes and how things move forward. Everybody's building IoT devices, which is there, but there has to be a standard that comes in. We haven't gone to that extreme yet. People are still looking at it, and that's very important. So I tried to keep it as simple and small as possible. We could actually go to comments and questions, make it more interactive. So this is my contact email, obviously, and LinkedIn obviously is there. I'm open to the questions now, and if we want to take things forward, please let me know. Thank you, people.
All right, thank you very much, Kris. And folks, we are now open for question and answers. If you have any questions, you could either insert it in the question box, or you could raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon available on your webinar console. So let me go to the question box. There are a couple of them. How IoT fits Industry 4.0?
Well, basically, we started with Internet of Things. And then when we started looking at cloud computing and all the different technologies, actually, Industry 4.0 is Internet of Things. How it fits together, all the technologies that we see today, all the technologies that we have on the road working today actually is what we call IoT. But as I said earlier, The Germans preferred to call it Industry 4.0 because they figured out that would be actually the best way to move forward, and they saw the opportunity to make businesses more fruitful. And if you look at the GDP, for example, in Europe, Germany comes out top because they have seen the opportunity. And this is where the IoT fits in. So I'll be a client. I order, for example, I have the Volkswagen definition video. So, people takes up a smartphone. This is what I want my car to look like. This is what I want my, wheels to look like. I want this, I want that. So IoT is the answer to how the Industry 4.0 runs.
Okay, thank you very much. Another one. I know you mentioned Kenya as a moving forward country. Which are the other countries who are really moving forward on it?
In Europe, Germany is doing a great job. There's no doubt about that. In Africa, right now, South Africa is trying to catch up. Kenya is catching up. Nigeria is trying to catch up on that because there's a lot of interesting things happening. And South America is actually doing quite a good job as well. Some of the countries, Argentina is trying to move in that direction. There's quite some movement. I mean, US is trying to move in that direction, but they haven't kind of sorted out where they want to go. But as I said, there was a couple of years back, they thought, Africa was, as a continent, wasn't an interesting part to go down to. Now, you look at Nokia, you look at the different companies that started seeing Africa as the way forward when it comes to smart mobile, smart devices. It has opened up a lot of research, basically. Even in China, they're looking at, how Kenya is doing it. Digital divide, how do we cross it? How do we make poor people more connected? It's happening. People walk there with 2, 3, 4 phones, and they've got different services and make it work. So there are some countries who actually move very fast forward. I mean, you look at Volkswagen, they've already done that. Bosch has already done some of the things. I didn't actually show you that. But there's a couple of other industries, but I will always take Germany as one of the leading in that direction. China is going pretty fast on that as well. I mean, the last time I visited Shenzhen, I see quite a few factories that actually move forward. So these are quite some interesting things that's happening, and where the IoT is actually fitting into that solution. I mean, look at Singapore, for example. You get on time, real time buses coming this way. You know exactly how things are working. They've integrated most of what their services. Even now, they're looking at healthcare, and then that is going into the IoT as well. So there's quite some interesting things happening in different parts of the world. But again, we'll come back to some of the countries where they see how to make sure that they can integrate all the different technologies available today on the market to make sure that it actually goes forward. So my last presentation in Kenya was about how to make the government more averse towards the population, and one of the countries this has done pretty well, which I visited last time, was Brazil. So they've kind of worked out quite some interesting ways, but that's government at this point in time. But it will definitely get the population. So they get online views of, whether the government is doing right, whether the government is doing wrong. But that was coming from the Auditor General's office, for example, to know exactly whether the governance is actually working pretty fine. These are, I mean, I can tell you a lot of stories, but let's keep it to that.
Well, yeah. Thank you very much. One last question we have is, how do you see the future would look like?
Well, the way things are going, I mean, the only one missing piece in what we call IoT is basically virtual reality, which is coming slowly. I mean, the way we starting to see it is when you integrate virtual reality in all of the IoT devices and all of the different technologies available today, you don't have to go to a retail store to check out on certain, I don't know, furniture, for example. You could actually, with the virtual reality, have someone come in front of you, show you what you're looking for. Really, you can even look at your preferred seller or reseller if you want to, and obviously do your online order directly, and they would actually be able to tell you in how much days it's going to be delivered to you, how much time it's going to happen. I mean, the way it's going forward, it's probably going to make people more, sitting in their couch and trying to do all their shopping, doing all their things without actually going to any retail store. I'm wondering whether, in the next 10 years, we will probably have real stores as we have today. We still have them, but I don't know whether it was still there for a show or it will actually disappear. But virtual reality is going to bring a lot of difference to how things are going to move forward in the future. Labor is not going to take a cut. We still believe that people will still be working with robotics. It's going to be there. It's not going to disappear. It's still going to be connected. So people have realized that you cannot actually take people out of the equation. So it's very important to how things move forward. And obviously, as I said, probably in the next 10 years, or probably, I'm perhaps too optimistic to say so, but once we see the virtual reality stuff come forward and how they integrate everything together, we will know whether it's 10 years or it's 5 years or it's 20 years. But definitely, by Gartner's reports, by 2020, we will have so many devices out there that's going to make the world revolutionize everything. So much smart devices will be out there. Our computers will be different, and obviously, this is going to create a lot of opportunities. And obviously, those people who do not right now get into the flow of the Internet of Things, or the Industry 4.0, as we want to call it, may be left behind when the time comes. So it might be interesting for people to start looking at, what are the options out there, how things are moving. Keep an eye on what's happening. Don't leave your business thinking that the way is going to work. It's going to change, definitely, and the banking system and the whole system will change drastically overly. So the future is quite, for me, optimistic, but obviously the way things are going to work is going to be very different from what we know today.
All right, thank you very much, and that really brings us towards the end of the webinar. So any quick concluding remarks that you would like to give before we dismiss out?
Well, it's an open discussion. I'm very open to any questions. This is not a sales pitch here. I like to share knowledge. I like to discuss things, and there are loads of things happening out there. And I would like to open that to anyone who wants to go, even in privately want to discuss about things. I would say, and for those who are already in the industry, running their business, whether it's IT, whether it's anything, people, I would say, please look at what are the options and move forward and start looking at how you can actually reduce costs, increase your, customer satisfaction, which is very important today, and move forward with that.
All right, thank you very much, and really want to thank you on behalf of the Madinah Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship for taking the time to deliver this live webinar. And once again, thank you very much, Kris. And
no problem.
And thank you all of those.
The pleasure is mine.
Sure. Yeah, equally the feelings are mutual. And thank you all of those who participated in this webinar. We are recording it. Please stay tuned to community. webinar.mile.org to learn about our upcoming programs and equally to access the recorded versions. With that note, I would like to end and conclude. So you all have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling from. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much.